Imagine stepping onto a film set. You don't own the cameras. You don't own the script.
Right, you're just showing up to do a job.
Exactly. And in this specific, highly stigmatized industry, you barely even own your own image.
You are essentially, you know, a commodity.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes. So today, on this deep dive, we're looking at how a former California waitress took that total lack of power, flipped it completely, and directed 17 of her own feature films.
And built a $15 million empire along the way, entirely on her own terms.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it really is a masterclass in structural leverage.
It is. I mean, when we look at the trajectory of Oriana Small, who most of the world knows by her professional moniker, Ashley Blue, we're looking at a blueprint.
A blueprint for taking a controversial, physically demanding entry-level role, right?
Yeah, and transforming it into this diversified, multi-hyphenate career.
And we have a really fascinating stack of sources to pull from today for you. We've got biographical profiles, complex Wikipedia analytics, and data from the Pantheon Cultural Metrics Project.
Which is super interesting data, by the way.
Oh, it's wild.
Yeah.
And our goal for you, the listener, is to kind of move past the surface-level sensationalism that usually surrounds the adult entertainment industry. We want to study the actual architecture of her success here.
Right, like how do you navigate a field notorious for burning people out and instead emerge as an actor, a director, a radio host, and an author?
So where do we start?
Well, you start by looking at the foundation. Oriana Small was born on July 8th, 1981 in Thousand Oaks, California.
Okay.
And she comes from a mixed ethnic background, Caucasian, Asian, and Native American. The sources note her upbringing was, well, strikingly normal.
Just a standard SoCal childhood.
Pretty much. She had supportive parents, went to local schools, did well in her studies, but instead of the traditional route of, jumping straight into a four-year college, she went right into the workforce.
Right. She worked heavily in customer-facing hospitality. Like, she was a receptionist, a restaurant hostess, a waitress. Now, on paper, that just sounds like your standard post-high school resume. But, I mean, thousands of people wait tables in L.A. and don't end up directing 17 films and making millions of dollars.
Exactly.
So there has to be more to her specific success than just, carrying plates around.
Oh, absolutely. It comes down to what she was actually absorbing in those roles. We tend to dismiss service jobs.
Well, for sure. People just see it as a stopgap.
Right, but if you approach them with an entrepreneurial mindset, they're basically crash courses in human psychology.
And operational management.
Yes. In a high-volume restaurant, a hostess isn't just standing at a podium smiling, she is managing the flow of the entire business.
It's like a live-action air traffic control.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it, actually. You're managing the expectations of impatient customers, dealing with chaotic, overlapping schedules.
And you're the buffer, right, between a highly stressed kitchen staff and the public.
Exactly. You have to maintain this pleasant, outward-facing persona regardless of the operational fires burning right behind you.
Right.
And that requires a very specific type of mental endurance and, emotional compartmentalization.
So you're arguing that this early hospitality experience was essentially a startup boot camp for her, like the training ground for navigating high-pressure media sets later on.
Exactly. She learned to manage the room early on. So when she entered the adult entertainment industry in her early 20s, around 2002, she wasn't walking in blind.
She already understood the realities of hard work.
Yeah. I mean, in films for mature audiences, the days are famously long. The physical and emotional demands are intense.
And the environments can be super unpredictable.
Incredibly chaotic sometimes. So that work ethic and stamina she developed answering phones and managing tables, that gave her the professional armor she needed.
The armor to handle the realities of production. And she didn't just handle it, she dominated it. By 2004, she had won the AVN Award for Female Performer of the Year.
Which is huge.
Yeah, for context, that is essentially the highest possible accolade in that specific media sector. And she signed an exclusive contract with JM Productions, becoming the face of their highly successful Girlvert series.
Which is where she really built her brand. Our sources point out she had a very distinct look petite, about 5'2", hazel eyes, a recognizable tattoo on her shoulder blade.
But it wasn't just aesthetics, right?
No, not at all. The reviews from that era describe her performances as bold and highlight a relentless gung-ho attitude.
Which goes right back to that endurance we were discussing.
Exactly. She wasn't just showing up to hit her mark. She was actively commanding the scenes she was in.
But I have to push back here for a second because starring in over 300 movies in just a few years, That is a staggering, grueling pace.
It's an intensive volume of work, yeah.
And we know that a lot of performers in this specific niche hit a wall. They burn out, they lose their marketability, or they just step away because the toll is too high. So what does this all mean for her career trajectory? How did she avoid becoming a cautionary tale?
By fundamentally changing her relationship to the camera.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, she didn't just keep grinding out performances until the industry was done with her. She pivoted. She stepped behind the camera and took on the role of director.
For 17 feature films.
Yes, 17. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, transitioning to a director role is a classic maneuver for longevity in media.
Right, but let's look at the mechanics of that pivot. Because in traditional Hollywood, actors become directors all the time just for, like, prestige.
Sure.
But in films, for mature audiences, is directing a necessary evolution just to survive. Because performers in this space notoriously lack control over their own working conditions.
It is far more than prestige in this sector. It's a mechanism for survival and autonomy. In mature media, the performer is historically the commodity.
The director and the producers own the IP.
Exactly. They dictate the marketing, the aesthetic, the narrative. By transitioning into a directing role, she crossed the most difficult barrier in media.
Going from being the subject of the narrative to the author of the narrative.
Precisely. She owned the means of production.
Wow.
Yeah. As a director, she was no longer just trading her physical labor for a day rate. She was dictating the working conditions on set.
Which has to be crucial for safety and comfort in that industry.
100%. She was shaping the creative aesthetic, and most importantly, from a business perspective, securing a stake in the intellectual property. It is the fundamental shift from being an employee to being a boss.
And once she established that authority behind the camera, she realized the Ashley Blue brand was bigger than just the films themselves.
She had built a massive platform.
But to monetize a platform in a highly stigmatized niche, you have to figure out how to cross over into the mainstream. And you have to do it without softening your edge or alienating your core audience.
Which is an incredibly difficult needle to thread.
Yeah.
Mainstream media often relies on adult entertainers just for shock value. They bring them on shows to mock or marginalize them. You have to be incredibly savvy to navigate that without becoming the punchline.
So let's look at how she did it. Because her diverse media portfolio is just fascinating. She didn't rely solely on video. She hosted her own Vivid radio show. She co-hosted Playboy TV's Night Calls Hotline. She started writing articles for Hustler magazine.
She was utilizing audio and print to prove she had a voice and a perspective, not just a physical presence.
Right, she was training her audience to care about what she had to say.
Which diversifies her income streams and builds a much more resilient personal brand.
And then she made these bizarre, brilliant, mainstream television appearances. Like in 2003, she went on the daytime television show Judge Mathis.
Oh, right, the lawsuit.
Yeah, she was suing her ex-boyfriend, Trent Tesoro, who was also a former film star in the same industry, and she actually won a partial judgment.
Which, whether that was purely a personal legal dispute or a calculated PR move, the result is the same.
It puts her directly in the living rooms of mainstream daytime America.
Exactly. It puts her in a completely different cultural format. She's functioning as a regular person seeking justice rather than an isolated figure on a screen.
It humanized her to a totally different demographic, and she kept doing it. In 2006, she was featured on Howard Stern On Demand in a segment titled Inside the Actor's Studio, Ashley Blue.
A direct play on the famous James Lipton interview show.
Yeah. She even did voice acting for a cartoon called Three Thug Mice. She was actively seeking out platforms that allowed her to showcase humor and personality.
It's brilliant brand management.
It really is. And just a quick pause here. The following text should be inserted in the middle of the podcast. If you're enjoying the vibe, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends. It really helps us out.
It really does.
Now back to the ultimate crossover, which has to be her writing. It's one thing to do an interview on Howard Stern. It is an entirely different level of cultural validation to publish a book.
Yes. The publication of her 2011 memoir, released under her JM Productions moniker, Girlvert.
Right.
This is arguably the most critical maneuver of her career. When you exist in a stigmatized industry, your narrative is constantly being written by other people.
Right, like marketing departments trying to sell DVDs.
Or critics trying to censor you, or journalists looking for a tragic headline. Writing a memoir is the ultimate tool for narrative reclamation. She took back the pen.
And what's wild is that the mainstream literary world actually took her seriously. We have the review here from Publishers Weekly.
Which is a huge deal.
Yeah, for you listening, Publishers Weekly is the major, highly respected trade gatekeeper for the publishing industry. They do not hand out praise lightly.
No, they don't.
And they didn't brush her book off as a novelty. They called it fiercely honest. They highlighted her amazing endurance in navigating the intense pitfalls of the industry.
But the detail that really stands out to me is how she framed her own career in that book.
Oh, the performance art thing.
Yeah, she proudly stated that she considered some of her work to be performance art.
Which is a bold intellectual stance.
That phrasing is a deliberate challenge to the reader. By framing her work in mature media as performance art, she is demanding that her output be viewed through a lens of artistic intent.
Artistic intent, physical discipline, boundary-pushing expression.
Exactly. Society is very comfortable categorizing mature media as purely transactional or lowbrow. She forces the audience to reckon with the actual human effort, the psychological endurance, and the creative choices behind the content.
It really elevates the entire conversation.
It does.
She's basically demanding the respect afforded to mainstream artists.
Yeah.
And that drive to be recognized globally leads us right into the empirical data of her legacy.
Oh, the metrics on her career are genuinely surprising. If we look at the Pantheon Cultural Metrics Project,
Which measures the historical and global resonance of public figures.
right, they assign her a Historical Popularity Index, or HPI, of 47.75.
Break that down for us. What does a 47.75 actually signify in the real world?
Well, Pantheon calculates HPI by looking at a variety of factors, primarily the volume of Wikipedia page views and, crucially, how many different languages a subject's page is translated into.
Okay.
A score of 47.75 makes her the 22nd most popular figure in her specific field globally.
Wait, really? 202nd in the world?
Globally.
Yeah.
It means she has transcended regional fame and penetrated the global cultural consciousness. She isn't just known in California. She is a recognizable entity across different linguistic and cultural borders.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the Wikipedia page view stats completely illustrate that porosity.
Yeah, let's hear the numbers.
Over the past year, her English Wikipedia page had over 95,000 views. Given her career, a strong English-speaking audience is totally expected. But then you look further down the data set. She had over 18,000 views in Persian. She had nearly 7,000 views in Turkish. And her fastest-growing audiences right now:
Let me guess.
Eastern Punjabi with a 216% growth rate, and Russian with a 140% growth rate.
See, it demonstrates that digital media completely bypasses traditional geographic and cultural gatekeepers. Content flows to wherever there is internet access.
It totally reminds me of the modern indie musician phenomenon.
How so?
You know, a band grinds it out in local LA clubs for a decade, feeling like they've hit a ceiling. Then one day, they look at their Spotify backend analytics and realize they have an absolute die-hard stadium-level fan base in Eastern Europe.
Or Southeast Asia, right.
Right. They had no idea they were a global phenomenon until the data proved it. Oriana Small's reach is exactly like that. The data proves her brand is entirely global.
And that sustained global reach is why she's recognized as an institution within her own industry.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, she was inducted into the AVN Hall of Fame in 2013 and later the XRCO Hall of Fame in 2021.
Yeah.
Those institutions don't induct you just for surviving a contract. They induct you because your aesthetic choices, your business models, or your performances left a permanent mark on how the industry operates.
Now, you listening might be thinking, sure, she was famous in a niche, and she has a lot of Wikipedia views in Russian, but how does that translate to real mainstream stability?
Right, the financial side.
Yeah, because so many figures with global fame end up with nothing to show for it financially.
Yeah.
But her estimated net worth sits around $15 million.
Which is incredible.
What are the actual business mechanics that turn niche fame into a $15 million reality?
It comes down to ruthless diversification. She didn't rely on a single revenue stream. She monetized her physical likeness during her performing years, but she didn't stop there.
She kept building.
Right. She monetized her leadership and secured ongoing IP royalties through her 17 directing credits. She monetized her intellect and perspective through her book sales and magazine columns.
And she monetized her personality through audio broadcasting.
Exactly.
Right.
When you combine performing day rates, directing royalties, licensing deals, and mainstream media cross-pollination, you build a fortress around your finances.
She basically built a conglomerate around herself. And what's fascinating is that behind this massive global footprint and this relentless $15 million hustle, her actual day-to-day life sounds incredibly grounded.
Yeah, peaceful even. The sources show a stark contrast between her high-octane professional brand and her personal reality.
Right.
In 2009, she married Dave Naz, who is an accomplished photographer and filmmaker. They live in Los Angeles, and rather than chasing tabloid fame, they frequently collaborate on fine art and photography projects.
In 2011, she even modeled for a series of paintings by the Swedish artist Carl Backman. Again, constantly blurring the lines between controversial media and fine art.
Yes.
And when you look at her personal interests, they are delightfully mundane. Like, she loves reading biographies, she's a classic rock fan.
She's highly specific about her love for fresh sashimi, too.
Yeah. And she enjoys spending quiet time with her pet cat.
It provides a necessary counterweight. You cannot sustain the level of output she had. Hundreds of films, radio shows, a memoir, directing without a fiercely protected, quiet personal life to recharge in.
That makes total sense.
Her hobbies reflect someone who has successfully separated her core identity from the intense demands of her public persona.
It truly is a masterclass in career architecture. We started this deep dive looking at a waitress from Thousand Oaks.
Right.
We've tracked how she stepped onto unpredictable high-pressure sets, seized the means of production by becoming a director, reclaimed her own story through a fiercely honest memoir, and built a global, multi-million-dollar legacy.
She didn't just survive one of the most controversial and unforgiving industries in the world. She bent it to her will and transcended it entirely.
Exactly.
It proves that entrepreneurial drive and business acumen can flourish in the most unexpected environments. She took a path with absolutely no built-in safety net, in a sector designed to commodify people, and she engineered a way to retain her voice, her creative autonomy, and her financial independence.
Which brings us back to the idea of career paths and how we judge them. Sometimes the most successful people aren't the ones following a safe, clearly marked map. They're the ones out in the uncharted territory, building their own roads from scratch.
Well said.
And it leaves me with this final thought for you to mull over. When we look at figures who start their careers in highly stigmatized or doubly unconventional industries, do we unfairly box them into their past? Or do we allow them the grace to be seen as the multidimensional artists, writers, and entrepreneurs they eventually become? More importantly, how much of your own future are you allowing to be dictated by the label of your very first job?